Alright, so I'll have to admit, I was never really into getting one of those mini handhelds. You know, like the Miu Mini Original, or the GKD Pixel, or the Miu A30, or the Anbernic RG28XX. But, as you can tell by this video, I did end up getting one of those mini handhelds, and specifically the 28XX. Maybe you don't even consider any of those handhelds the true mini handheld, and it can only be something like the RG Nano, which is actually really freaking small. It's like keychain sized. But to me, anything that's smaller than a 3-inch screen I consider mini. And to be honest, it doesn't have to do entirely with the size of the console. One of the reasons why I don't like these mini handhelds is they oftentimes don't come with internal Wi-Fi as a feature. Aside from the Miu A30, that one actually apparently does come with internal Wi-Fi, so I guess they can have internal Wi-Fi. And the reason why I like having internal Wi-Fi for my handhelds is because I like to play with retro achievements. And for those of you that don't know what retro achievements are, it's basically a system to award you achievements for playing old games and doing certain tasks. What you do is create an account on retroachievements.org. You log in with those same credentials on a Retro Achievements supported emulator like RetroArch or some other emulators that have it. I can't really name them off the top of my head. And then once you're logged in, it'll keep track of your gameplay so that it'll reward you for completing those certain tasks. It's really addicting to say the least. Well, I decided to give the Anbernic RG28XX a shot despite it not having internal Wi-Fi because I decided that Retro Achievements doesn't have to run my life, and sometimes I can play games without achievements turned on, and that's okay. I wanted a device that I could simply throw in my pocket, take with me wherever I go, and play games on the go without having to worry about being near Wi-Fi and making sure my retro achievements are logged in. Pick up and go kind of handheld, if you will. The convenience factor of this device is just amazing, and honestly the emulation abilities are kind of surprising for the size of the handheld. So today we're taking an in-depth look of the 28XX by Anbernic. I'm going to tell you everything I liked about it, things I didn't like about it, and whether or not you should get one yourself. So let's watch the video. So full disclosure, I was actually sent the RG28XX from this company called Geek Goo. Although they were kind enough to send me the unit to review, there was absolutely no money exchange in the process, and Geek Goo is not seeing this review beforehand. All thoughts are my own. I will, however, link to Geek Goo's website as well as their Amazon store with the promotional link they sent me, just in case you decide you want to buy one and you want to get it from them. The Amazon deal is actually pretty nice considering you get all the Amazon Prime benefits. Anyway, if you decide to purchase it, links will be in my description. With that out of the way, let's get into the unboxing of the RG28XX. Here's the box. I really like the little indent they did with the box here. This is a nice Anbernic box. Oh man, it's so little. Pull this out first. Put this aside. We got our instructions. Basic instructions. Alright, and here we're probably gonna get a cable. Yep. USB-C cable. And that's it for the box, nothing else. No screen protector this time. Here's the console. Alright. It is so small. Actually, I kind of low-key like this. This is so tiny. It's like a Game Boy Micro. Before I get into the physical specs of the device, I wanted to stress the point of how pocketable this device is. The other evening, I wanted to go outside when it wasn't too hot. I took the kids to the park, and while they were playing by themselves and I was kind of sitting off to the side, I decided, instead of getting on my phone, why don't I play my handheld for a bit? And that's what I did. This device is so convenient for carrying it around in my pocket that it was easy for me to just take it out and start playing during those small moments of time when I had nothing better to do. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this device is changing the way I pass time. I'm finding myself getting on my phone less and less and opting for the RG28XX to play some retro games. Now, I know this is something I can do with any of my other handhelds, but I'm telling you, the mini-ness of this device makes it more readily available to me when I'm on the go. It's truly remarkable for that reason alone. With that in mind, let's talk about the device itself and its specs. One quick note I'll make, you'll probably notice in a lot of my footage this teeny tiny little crack in the glass in the corner here. No, this is not a manufacturing error, but rather me dropping the device like a klutz. I dropped it from a seating position straight onto tile, so that was roughly 2, maybe 3 feet, and it wasn't a normal drop. It was one of those goofy trying to catch it on the way down, but instead I'm actually making the drop worse. It landed straight on the screen too, so I'm surprised that it did so little damage. Of course, this is the first time I actually dropped one of my handhelds, and it happens to be the one that doesn't come with a screen protector. Anyway, let's talk about the physical device. As I mentioned in the unboxing, the device is tiny, but I kinda sorta love it. I'm a big fan of the Game Boy Micro shape with this one corner here having an extra slope, with the speaker sort of riding this little slope with that extra rounded corner. It gives it an extra premium look in my opinion. Aesthetically, it's very nice. The plastic feels very nice in the hand, although a little slicker than I'd like personally. That's probably the reason why I dropped it, honestly. I think you'll benefit greatly from a case with this device. There aren't many options out there, unfortunately. I found this one that looked promising. I didn't buy it yet, but if I do, I'll make sure to let you guys know if it's garbage or not. Let's take a look at the face buttons. The D-pad feels nice and firm. It does protrude out quite a bit, which doesn't bother me too much, if I'm being completely honest. The start and select buttons are rather clicky, and the A, B, X, and Y buttons have a nice travel with a soft membrane, so they're not clicky. At first, these buttons concerned me due to how small they were, but so far, I've not had any issues while playing games like double pressing buttons or anything like that. The glass over the screen has some pretty prominent grooves that surround it, really making that screen pop out. I think it's cool, but you'll have to be the judge of that. One thing I'll note is that there's this optical illusion going on with this device. Hopefully the camera can actually pick it up, but basically, depending on the angle you're looking at it, it looks like the glass over the screen is moving. This was really tripping me out at first, but then I realized it was just an illusion. Again, I'm a big fan of the front-facing speaker here and how the little slits slope down its little notch. Probably too insignificant of a detail to mention twice, but whatever. On top, we have our shoulder buttons, L1, L2, R1, R2. They're rather clicky, and I will say that they're a bit uncomfortable to use. This isn't a problem with the layout exactly, but rather the fact that this device is so tiny, and you'll just have to claw your fingers a bit. Also on top, we have our power and charger indicator lights, our USB-C port, and a mini HDMI out. Why do we have a mini HDMI out for this mini handheld? I'm not sure what the reasoning was. I can't see much of a use case for it because the point of this device is to be pocketable and portable. Finally, on top we have the menu button, which you'll use a lot when gaming to access the menu of the emulator you're using. On the right side, we have our power button and reset button, and on the left side, we have our volume buttons. One thing I really like about this device is the amount of control you have on the volume. Each input makes a slight adjustment to the sound so that you can really fine-tune the volume. On the bottom, we have 2 micro SD ports as well as a headphone jack. Now that we've gone over the device itself, let's talk about the specs. The 28XX has a 2.83-inch IPS display with 480p resolution. The display in this console, in my opinion, is one of its strong points. It's nice and bright, making your retro games look great. The 28XX runs on Allwinner H700 CPU and a Mali GPU as well as 1GB of RAM. This handheld runs on Linux with a 3100 mAh battery, which is pretty big for its size. Something interesting about this device is that it supports basic video and audio formats so that you can like play music or videos on the device. Kind of gives it a retro feel like an MP3 player. Mine came with Hotel California on it already, which, I mean, come on. Out of all the songs you could have chose, why did you choose the most overplayed song? But whatever. Typically, when I get a new retro handheld, I want to do a lot of research on it about the setup I want to have for it before I start playing on it. So what kind of operating system do I want to use on it? Is it going to be the stock OS, or am I going to use some custom firmware? What kind of front end am I going to use? What kind of emulators am I going to put on it? And I do a lot of research and a lot of setup. It gets really technical really fast. So what did I do for my setup for the RG28XX? Well, the answer is nothing. I received the device, booted it up, and played it as it arrived. Something that I'm not used to doing. And I'll be honest, the stock OS on this device is totally fine, especially when you factor in that you pretty much want this device for a pick up and go kind of handheld. And the SD card that came with mine came loaded with games already on it, which is typical of Anbernic products, so I didn't even have to add any of my own. Although it didn't have any Mario games, which is kind of important, but adding ROMs to it is very simple. You just take the SD card, plug it into your computer. You're going to need an adapter usually, and I'll link to that in the description. And then you just find the folder called ROMs and drag and drop your ROMs into the corresponding console folders. And there you have it. You can buy this device, play it as is, and it works totally great. However, mine did have an outdated stock OS. This is something you may want to change. Personally, I didn't feel the need to, but if I encounter any issues in the future, I probably will. There is no over-the-internet updatability, unfortunately, since there's no Wi-Fi capability. What you'll need to do is grab an empty micro SD. I recommend this one. I'll put the link in the description, but any name brand will do. Then you'll need to flash that SD card with the stock OS. You can find the stock OS on Anbernic's website. Pretty easy to find. Then you'll need to flash it with a program for Mac. For instance, you use Balena Etcher. I think that's how you pronounce it. But you can look up the process very easily online. All right, so you've got your system booted up. There are a few minor things I would change. Don't worry, it's not much. First, go to the settings menu and switch your lock screen to never. Mine was originally set to like 1 or 2 minutes, which is just dumb. You can't even grab yourself a cup of coffee before that time's out. While you're in this menu, scroll down and check what firmware version you have. Again, mine's outdated, probably because I got one of the earlier ones, but I'm not seeing any issues right now, so I'm not updating it right now. Maybe in the future I will. We'll see. Next, you'll want to go over to RA Games or RetroArch Games. Click on that and click left once and you'll see this apps folder. Click on that, scroll down to the quick shutdown. By default, this was off for me. You want to turn it on because what it allows you to do is whenever you're playing a game, you can simply tap the power button, the 28XX will create a save file for you, turn off your device, and then when you turn it back on, you'll go straight back to the game and where you're left off. This is an amazing quality of life feature. To turn it on, just click on it. It'll boot the app. Don't worry, it takes way longer than you think it will to boot. Once it's booted, it'll turn on that feature. Finally, the last thing that's super important in my opinion is the scaling for GBA games. So you'll notice by default the scaling is going to look weird when you boot up a GBA game. That's because they used a 3:4 aspect ratio, which is not quite what the GBA ratio is. What you'll need to do is you'll need to go to your RetroArch menu, hit back, then go to video, then go to scaling, and then you'll want to do a custom scaling. And the reason why you want to do this is because by default the layout is flipped for this device, so they don't actually have a regular 3:2 aspect ratio scaling. So you put it in custom scaling and then you put in these numbers here listed, and I'll put them on the screen as well so it's clear. But basically you want to have your X position at 30, then your width at 427, and then your height at 640. And this will put it as close as possible to a real GBA scaling. Now, you can't stop there because when you go back to the game and you try to play and then quit later on, it'll reset it back to normal. You'll need to override the core. At first, my option for override wasn't available, and that's because I had to make it appear. So basically, go back to the main menu, go to user interface, then go to main menu options, and then go to the quick menu options, and you'll see this option here for override core. Click on that so that it's visible. Go back to quick menu, and then you'll see there that there's an override core option. Click on that, and now whenever you boot a GBA game, any GBA game, you'll have the correct aspect ratio that we set up. And that's my complete quick setup guide for the RG28XX. Let's get into the fun stuff, game testing. Alright, don't forget for Game Boy Advance they got to fix the scaling for this. If you didn't see the section, go back to the setup section I filmed. I explained how to do that there. So vertical arcade games are actually kind of weird to play on this device. You got to play it like this. But honestly, it's actually not that bad. It looks weird, but it doesn't feel that uncomfortable.
It's party time. Let's have some fun.
So Dreamcast actually runs really well on this device. The only thing is it's kind of awkward to play 3D games without having a joystick.
Crazy. I can spare no time.
All right, I'm going to talk about the things I like about the device and things I don't like so much, like a, pros and cons list, if you will. So first of all, the portability. It's mini, it's highly portable, and it's something that I can take with me everywhere. I really like that. Next thing I like is the quality of build. Honestly, for this cheap device, I think it's really well made. Again, the little slanted speaker. Yep, I'm mentioning it a third time, but I just really like it. I don't know why. Also, it's very convenient to set up, and the quick shutdown option is great for just pick up and go gaming. Finally, fine-tuning volume control. I like that you have so much control over the volume for this device. Also, it's important to add that this device can actually handle a lot of emulation like PlayStation 1, N64, Dreamcast, and even PSP. That's kind of amazing considering it's so small. Now let's talk about the things that I don't like so much. So sometimes the on button is a little finicky. I'll have to hold it for a while, or sometimes I'll even have to press it twice in order to turn the device on. Not sure why that's happening. Could be a firmware issue. Also, the volume for some reason always starts at 50%, which is a problem when I'm playing at night and I, do a quick boot up and it starts playing like Pokemon Fire Red really loud while I'm in bed with my wife who's asleep. Also, the stock OS doesn't look so great. It's kind of bland, and, I'm not really expecting much from a stock OS. I just wanted to point out that it's nothing like Onion OS or something like that. And finally, not having Wi-Fi. Again, I like retro achievements, being able to play them, but hey, I'm willing to compromise for the convenience factor of this device. So the question is, who is this console great for? Well, in my opinion, there's three people that will benefit from it. One is someone looking for a budget handheld that can play the real retro stuff, anything that's not pretty much 3D, because yeah, it can play a lot of 3D games, but it's not really that enjoyable on the small device without having a joystick. The second person that's going to benefit from it is someone like me that already owns a retro handheld and wants kind of a sidekick for it. Now, I know that sounds kind of weird, but to me, I don't really take my retro handhelds out that much, just because it's kind of awkward to play in public. I know they're still pocketable, but it's just something that you want to really whip out at like a park or wherever you may be. But this one is so tiny, it really doesn't feel weird at all, and it's so easy to just throw in your pocket, just go out and start playing it. And the third group that I recommend getting this console is for people that want to dip their toes into the mini handhelds. Because even though it has the same small screen, the horizontal form factor of this device makes it feel less mini when you're actually playing it. It's just because it's easier to grip a horizontal console than it is a vertical one. Anyway, overall, I'm glad I gave the 28XX a shot. It's got a nice build, it's very simple to set up, and it's very convenient to just throw in my pocket and take wherever I want. And plus, it plays every retro game that I want out of a mini handheld. I don't really care about playing 3D games in a mini handheld. Anyway, that'll do it for the video. If you enjoyed it so far, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to increase my subscriber count so I can, reach a larger audience. And if you like the video, it helps the algorithm and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm going to go back to playing on the 28XX. And just need to remember where I put it. And oh yeah, almost forgot it was in my pocket because it's so small. Get it? Very pocketable. Forgot it was there. That was a dumb outro, but I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.